Chairman, in Eisenhower's very prescient farewell speech, he not only warned us about the military-industrial complex, he warned us about government funding of research. He said, if you do that, scientists are going to be more interested in their grant, in obtaining a grant, than pursuing truthful science. He said you end up with a scientific and technological elite that would drive public policy, and I think we witnessed that during COVID. They drove it in a very bad direction. So I want to talk about the cover-up again. Dr. Garry, how much have you received in government grants over your career? Do you have any figure in that, a ballpark?
Sir, I'm not sure.
Hundreds of millions?
Not hundreds.
So I have information that between you and Dr. Kirsten Anderson, since 2020, between 2020 and 2022, you received $25.2 million in grants from the NIH.
That's possible.
That's accurate? Okay, so after you write the proximal origin theory, you've been working with Dr. Fauci how many years?
Well, I don't actually work directly with Dr. Fauci.
Well, I mean, you've certainly come to his aid and testified kind of in his support during AIDS. But the fact is, you cashiered $25.2 million in government grants after writing the proximal origin paper, didn't you? $25.2 million in grants. And again, it's Anthony Fauci.
It wasn't because we wrote
Anthony
that,
Fauci has let out billions of dollars worth of grants, right? He controls an awful lot of information. Again, the point being, why would they cover it up? January 27, 2020, Dr. Fauci is informed via email that NIAID has been funding coronavirus project in China for the last 5 years. Okay, so he's given, these are the emails that were FOIA'd. They weren't given to us, and they're heavily redacted. January 31st, he starts conversations with Dr. Anderson and et al., Dr. Garry. February 1st, Dr. Fauci emails, and my screen went dead on me here, rats. Do you have that? Fauci emails his principal deputy director, Hugh Auchincloss. And here's the... He said, Hugh, it is essential that we speak this AM. Keep your cell phone on. I have a conference call at 7:45. These will likely be over at 8:45. Read this paper, as well as the email that I will forward to you. You will have tasks today that must be done. Now, that is somebody who's scrambling to cover up his backside for funding dangerous research at the Wuhan lab for 5 years. Is that correct? Dr. Ebright, I'll ask you that question, but in addition, you've basically accused Dr. Garry of scientific misconduct, possibly as serious as fraud. Why don't you address that? Because I would agree with you.
Both on the proximal origin paper, I have signed 2 letters by teams of scientists requesting an editorial review of that paper for retraction for misconduct. And then on 2 of the market papers, there are only 4 published, only 2 published.
But again, what was the misconduct you've accused him, but what was the misconduct you're
The primary misconduct, the misconduct of highest importance, was stating conclusions the authors knew at the time, contemporaneously, while writing the paper, submitting the paper, and publishing the paper, were untrue. This is the most egregious form of scientific misconduct, publishing a paper where you know the conclusions are untrue.
And of course, the reason we didn't get those emails other than through a court order is that the emails themselves were so unbelievably incriminating
that
they thought one thing and wrote the exact other for an article that then was quoted like 5,800 times. I mean, that, again, as Senator Hawley and others have pointed out, destroyed people's careers. They were ridiculed. They were vilified.
Yes.
That is scientific misconduct and fraud. And Dr. Garry, I have to say, if people are bemoaning the fact that people no longer trust science or that we don't trust our federal health agencies, the reason the American public legitimately don't trust scientists and federal health agencies are because of people like you. You bear that responsibility for violating the public's trust. from your scientific misconduct and fraud. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Garry, you
Thank
can.
you so much. So I would just encourage people to go and read the Nature Medicine article, The Proximal Origins of SARS-CoV-2. We didn't put anything in that paper that we didn't believe was true. The conclusions of that paper have held up very well. In fact, there's been an abundance of scientific evidence that has come forward since then to support all the conclusions, everything we wrote in that paper. So there's no fraud. Yes, indeed, some of the authors changed their mind during the course of writing that paper over a period of weeks. That's not fraud, sir. That is just the way that the scientific method works.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would ask consent to enter all these Slack messages from this, Dr. Anderson et al., that group, that have all these quotes into our hearing record, and we'll provide them to you. Thank you.
Objection. Senator Marshall, you recognize for your questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.